A world once teeming with abundant rivers, expansive lakes, and endless oceans now whispers of an imminent crisis, echoing through the barren landscapes of what was once lush and thriving. The Earth's vital pulse, water, has become a scarce and precious commodity, a fragile commodity teetering on the brink of collapse. As the sun beats down mercilessly on cracked earth and parched fields, silence settles over many regions where once vibrant communities thrived. A silent alarm rings in the background, unnoticed by most, drowned out by the noise of daily life. The global population is spiraling upward, billions increasing every year, demanding more water for drinking, agriculture, industry. But nature's capacity to replenish is waning. Climate change, ruthless in its toll, exacerbates the urgency. Glaciers shrink, monsoons become erratic, and droughts stretch on for years, distorting the delicate balance of ecosystems. Where rivers once flowed freely, now stories of desperate sobs and silent suffering emerge, invisible to those who turn on faucets without a second thought. In countless communities, taps run dry, leaving residents with nothing but memories of water, a taste that has forever changed. Women carrying heavy jugs through treacherous terrain, children sitting at cracked wells waiting in vain, farmers watching helplessly as their land turns to dust. These images are no longer rare. They are the new normal. Every day, lives are lost to dehydration, starvation, and chaos driven by scarcity. And yet, amid this chaos, the narrative persists, of greed, mismanagement, and indifference. Countries hoard water, wars erupt over access, and corporations seize control, transforming water into a commodity to be bought and sold at will. The Earth's natural fountains are drying up, replaced by artificial reservoirs that struggle to meet mounting demands. The long-term sustainability becomes a distant dream for many, replaced by urgent survival, by desperation. In this climate of crisis, there is a haunting question. What will happen when our water supplies run critically low? Will humans adapt or unravel? Will the fragile threads holding our civilization together snap under pressure? The world's eyes are turning inward, searching for answers, yet the answers seem elusive, buried beneath layers of greed, political intrigue, and environmental decay. As the scene shifts to a desolate desert landscape, where a lone drone captures the vast emptiness stretching to the horizon, a faint ripple of hope flickers, small communities turning to innovative solutions, technologies arising out of necessity, underground aquifers being tapped beneath the surface in secret. But even these efforts are fleeting, fragile at best. The clock is ticking. The water, our most basic, primal need, has become a battleground. The wealth of a planet's resources now slipping through our fingers, a silent warning of what's to come. When the last drop falls, what then? Will humanity learn to share, to conserve, to rethink its ways? Or will this scarcity ignite irreparable chaos, tearing societies apart, erasing civilizations as we know them? The question hangs in the air, heavy and unspoken. What will happen when our water supplies run critically low? The answer remains unwritten, unfolding with every passing day, every neglected river, every ignored warning. In the shadows of this crisis, a story begins. A story not only of survival but of the echoes left behind when humanity's most vital resource is threatened with extinction. Beneath the expansive, merciless sky, the world's rivers and lakes begin to whisper their silent agony. The camera sweeps over parched landscapes, dreary plains cracked and fractured, where water once flowed in vibrant abundance but now lies fragmented into shadows of what they used to be. The voice of the narrator emerges, grounding us in the painful reality. This crisis did not awaken overnight. It was born from 1,000 cuts, each a story of human excess and environmental neglect. Polluted waters swirl in murky currents, a toxic cocktail born from industrial waste and neglect. Factories spew chemical soups into rivers, their dark sludge seeping insidiously into ecosystems, killing life invisible to most but felt by all. The camera lingers over industrial zones where effluents spill unchecked, contaminating groundwater and poisoning communities. The scene shifts to densely populated cities. Overflowing sewage, plastic debris, pesticides, all flowing into rivers, turning vast water bodies into open sewers, destroying habitats and the very sources of life that sustain humans and animals alike. Simultaneously, overuse casts its long shadow. Agriculture, a foundation of human civilization, demands staggering amounts of water. Pictures of vast irrigation systems, sprawling fields under relentless sun, and pumping stations operational day and night paint a picture of relentless consumption. Crops flourish temporarily, but the groundwater inexorably diminishes. As pumping intensifies, aquifers diminish, sinkholes open like scars in the earth, and wells are abandoned, leaving communities to face drought at a moment's notice. But climate change, an unforgiving, relentless force, lays waste across all these struggles. Melting glaciers retreat, rivers that once relied on snowcaps to sustain flow now fade into a trickle. Droughts stretch longer, wildfires rage through forests, and unpredictability becomes the new norm. The landscape shifts. Once predictable patterns of rain become erratic, unpredictable. Monsoons that once replenished subsiding rivers are now sporadic or devastatingly intense, washing away towns, erasing livelihoods, and finally, exhausting even the most resilient water sources. As we watch scenes of melting ice caps and drought-stricken valleys, the narrative deepens, exposing a darker truth. These environmental factors are compounded by geopolitical inequalities. Wealth and power determine access to water, turning basic human necessity into a commodity, a privilege for the few at the expense of many. In regions rich in resources, infrastructures are fortified, water is pumped, stored, shared, but only within borders that serve the interests of the powerful. Meanwhile, the marginalized, confined to drought-ravaged areas, struggle for survival, their pleas drowned out by policies, nationalism, and economic disparity. The camera zooms into crowded refugee camps, where families line up for water that is barely enough to quench their thirst. It cuts to political debates and conflicts over transboundary water resources, revealing how rivers become battlegrounds. Dams and reservoirs, symbols of control, are built with geopolitical dominance in mind, often exacerbating inequality downstream. The scene is stark. Access to water is intertwined with power, and those at the top hoard the resource, leaving others to suffer the consequences. In this montage of human hubris and environmental chaos, the voices rise in a haunting chorus. Could these causes, pollution, overuse, climate change, geopolitical inequality, be the sparks that ignite future conflicts? The question hangs thick over the landscape of despair. The narrative draws us closer. This crisis is no longer a distant threat but a present danger. Borders are becoming less relevant as water shortages threaten to destabilize entire regions, fueling unrest and violence. The scene cuts to images of protests erupting in drought-stricken cities, tribal communities defending their river rights, and military forces patrolling border zones. The message is clear. Water scarcity is a catalyst for chaos, turning peaceful societies into fractured battlegrounds. Every drop lost or hoarded amplifies tensions, and the geopolitical landscape begins to resemble a powder keg, waiting for a spark. As the visuals fade into darker tones, signaling the onset of a looming crisis, the narrator's voice deepens in tone. This is more than an environmental issue. It's a story of humanity's surrender to its own excesses and blindness. The causes of water shortage are interconnected threads woven into the fabric of our global society. Without urgent action, the future indicates that these tensions will escalate, potentially igniting conflicts that could engulf entire regions, leaving destruction in their wake. The chapter concludes with a sobering reflection. What lies ahead depends on the choices made today. Will we confront our mistakes and work towards sustainable solutions, or will we remain blinded by greed and complacency, allowing history to repeat itself? The echoes of what we have done and continue to do threaten to erase the peaceful coexistence once maintained by water, an essential element, now a symbol of humanity's failure. The question lingers ominously. Could these causes, already inscribed in the fabric of our planet, lead us into a future torn apart by conflict, driven by the scarcity of that vital, life-giving resource? In the shadowed dawn, the sun barely cresting the horizon, a fragile silence hangs over the arid landscape, a silent witness to a brewing tempest that no one dare fully acknowledge. The earth, cracked and yearning, whispers of a scarcity that gnaws at the edges of civilization. Tensions simmer beneath the surface, barely veiled, yet undeniably present. Borders drawn on maps now seem insignificant compared to the invisible boundaries that man has carved into the very lifeblood of this planet: water. Across the parched plains and dusty valleys, communities gather, voices rising in a chorus of protests, not of mere dissatisfaction, but of desperation. Men and women clutching empty buckets, children gazing with wide eyes, witnessing the struggle unfold. Each raised voice echoes with frustration, accused of greed, neglect, or outright hostility. Small skirmishes erupt here and there, fleeting but fierce, a clash over a dwindling water source. The clatter of stones and shouts drown out the distant hum of machinery, as local conflicts escalate into broader confrontations, revealing the cracks in an already fractured world. Border patrols patrol defunct fences, teeth clenched, eyes wary. The demarcations that once defined sovereign territories now seem obsolete when faced with a common enemy: thirst. Military posts, hastily erected, serve as symbols of control and uncertainty. Their guards, hardened from years of conflict, watch each other warily, knowing that beneath the surface, the unspoken rule is survival at any cost. The lines on the map are politicized, weaponized even, but the reality remains: a race against time to secure what little remains of life-giving water. Amid these scenes of chaos, a quiet resistance stirs. Organizers, activists, and local leaders attempt to forge fragile alliances, whispering plans of shared resource management, of mutual understanding, of diplomacy in a landscape where words can be more lethal than bullets. Yet trust is scarce, and old wounds run deep. The scars of previous conflicts, both physical and emotional, are etched into the collective memory of these communities, making reconciliation arduous. In the midst of this turmoil, a small group of individuals stands out. Their faces etched with worry and hope, they carry the weight of a looming question that haunts every conversation. Are we heading toward a global water war? The implications spiral outward like a dark cloud, threatening to overshadow all else. Leaders speak in guarded tones about negotiations and treaties, but the echoes of violence in the streets suggest a different trajectory, one toward chaos rather than resolution. As tensions mount, the scene shifts to a broader view, revealing the interconnectedness of these localized struggles. Satellite images and news broadcasts show a world under stress: drought-ridden regions, collapsing aquifers, and swift-moving armies guarding dwindling supplies. The narrative unfolds, exposing how the scarcity of a single resource, water, is not merely a regional issue, but a catalyst for conflict on a global scale. The delicate balance of diplomacy teeters, swayed by radical factions, economic interests, and desperate calls for aid. In homes and makeshift shelters, stories are shared in hushed tones, stories of loss, of betrayal, and of hopes dashed against the harsh realities of climate change and human greed. Children grow up amidst conflict, their innocence tainted by the struggle for survival. Some are born into a world where water is a privilege, a currency, and a source of contention. Their eyes carry the weight of a future that demands decisions that could spiral into violence or cooperation, peace or war. The scene closes with a panoramic shot of the sun setting over a landscape scarred by human conflict, yet still resilient, like the faint glimmer of a dying ember, hinting at the possibility of change. But the shadows lengthen, and the question lingers. Whether this is merely the beginning of a long, dark chapter or the last flicker before a change that might shape the future of humanity forever. The question echoes in the silence of the night. Are we heading toward a global water war? Or can humanity find a way to turn the tide before it's too late? And so, the story continues, drifting into the unknown, where the stakes have never been higher, and the echoes of those who tried to erase the truth threaten to resurface, reminding us that the fight for water is a fight for survival, a fight for our shared humanity in a world teetering on the brink. As the water crises deepened, shadows cast from desperation stretched across the globe, intensifying the darkening skies of civilization's fragile veneer. Nations, once driven by diplomacy and economic interests, now awoke to a new, deadly urgency. Water was no longer just a resource, it was now a battlefront. Borders blurred in chaos, armies mobilized with cold precision, and what was once a border dispute became a war for survival itself. The air, thick with the smell of dry earth and the faint hum of engines, carried the weight of futures being rewritten in the bloodied sands of conflict zones. In the northern plains of a once peaceful country, armored vehicles carved scars through cracked soil, their cannon sights fixated on distant, water-rich territories. Flag-draped soldiers poured out in waves, their faces hardened, eyes hollow, haunted by foreboding visions of what was to come. They advanced not just with guns but with a gnawing awareness that they fought for mere drops, the illusion of sustenance in a world suffocating from thirst. Behind them, cities and towns drowned in silence, their inhabitants abandoned or locked behind barricades, desperate to shield what little water they had left from the invading armies. Across the continent, alliances had been forged in the crucible of scarcity, treaties once signed in hopes of peace replaced by cold, strategic pacts. Countries that once considered each other enemies now saw potential partners in outraged neighbors equally desperate to secure their own survival. The map, previously dotted with diplomatic lines, was now a mosaic of occupied territories, contested zones, and unsteady alliances forged in desperation. Each nation, driven by instinct or necessity, poured resources into expanding their control, sending fleets and troops towards water sources they deemed vital for their future. The seas, once a domain of fishers and explorers, became battlegrounds themselves, with warships patrolling the waters, blockading international access, and confronting rival forces in a deadly game of control. Submarines lurked beneath the surface, silent predators watching over potential routes that could supply or starve entire regions. The global economy, intricately intertwined yet increasingly brittle, teetered on the edge, as trade routes were severed, and the flow of goods and aid halted. The supply chains that once fueled development now fueled conflicts, as each faction fought over dwindling supplies, their desperation transforming into brutality. In the heart of the chaos, whispers of resistance and rebellion rose amidst the ruins. Scattered groups, often operating in the shadows, sought to reclaim their waters, to restore some semblance of balance in a world gone mad. Their faces scarred by hardship, their eyes gleaming with rage and hope, they became symbols of resilience. Yet they could do little against armies equipped with tanks, drones, and the full might of nations mobilized in the name of survival. What of the civilians caught in this maelstrom? Families torn apart, children's screams lost amidst the deafening roar of war. Water, once a simple necessity, now a symbol of life and death. Governments rationed what little remained, imposing curfews, checkpoints, and brutal crackdowns to prevent unrest. People huddled in underground shelters, their lives reduced to fragile routines of waiting and hoping for rescue, for peace, for the end of this nightmare. But hope was waning with every passing day, replaced by a somber realization. This war over water was not just a conflict. It was the death knell of civilization's old promises. Suspicions grew. Could there be a larger force orchestrating this chaos? Was this chaos a natural descent into savage conflict? Or was there a darker hand pulling strings behind the scenes? Rumors spread of clandestine groups and shadow organizations profiting from the destruction, exploiting the chaos for their own gain, feeding into a cycle of violence that seemed to echo from the depths of unseen depths. Meanwhile, the world watched, divided and paralyzed. International bodies scrambled to respond, but their efforts were too little, too late. Sanctions, peace talks, and humanitarian aid faltered against the tide of destruction. The global response was fractured, with some nations asserting dominance over water-rich regions, others wrestling to maintain their own dwindling supplies, and many simply succumbing to despair. The question hung in the air like a ghost. What would be the world's next move? Would the chaos ignite a global order, forging alliances built on shared survival, or would it plunge humanity into a new dark age, where water wars made all previous conflicts seem trivial? The roots of this conflict ran deep, intertwined with greed, corruption, and blind survival instinct, threatening to consume everything in its path. The camera lingering on the horizon, where smoke billowed from burning reservoirs and armies clashed amidst the barren landscape, captures not just a scene of devastation, but a reflection of humanity's own fractured soul. The story of water, a simple element, had become a mirror, revealing the depths of greed and the heights of despair. As the world teeters on the brink, the next move could either plunge it further into chaos or drive it towards an uneasy peace. But one truth remains clear. The rise of water wars is not just a story of conflict. It is a mirror to the darkness within us, a haunting echo of what we've become when survival is the only law. As the relentless grip of water scarcity tightened its hold, the fragile threads holding society together began to unravel. Once, cities thrived with the hum of daily life, but now, they echoed with an unsettling silence punctuated only by distant riots and the hurried footsteps of desperate souls. The market squares lay barren, their stalls abandoned, food supplies exhausted and hoarded by those willing to fight for the smallest morsel. Panic had become the new currency, more valuable than gold, as hunger gnawed at the core of communities. In the corridors of what was once a bustling financial district, stock tickers had long gone dark. Banks, now empty husks of their former selves, stood as silent witnesses to the economic collapse. Money lost all meaning in the face of survival. The entire economic fabric had unraveled, leaving behind a world where barter replaced currency, and trust was a long-forgotten relic. People looked at each other with suspicion, their eyes clouded with fear, their hearts heavy with despair. Mass migrations spiraled across barren landscapes. Thousands, driven by the hope of escape or the cruel necessity of survival, abandoned everything they knew. Roads turned into gaunt pathways of desperation, crawling with caravans forged from battered vehicles and makeshift carts. Some traveled alone, eking out life in the shadows, while others formed frail communities along the way, banding together against the brutal elements. Entire towns turned into ghost towns seemingly overnight, their inhabitants having vanished into the dust, seeking refuge amid distant mountains or uncharted territories where water remained marginally accessible. Social unrest ignited everywhere, from the decrepit city streets to the isolated outskirts of rural areas. Rioting erupts without warning, fueled by shortages and frustration. Looting became commonplace, as people fought over the dwindling resources that could sustain life, their morals eroding alongside their belongings. Militias and rogue factions rose from the chaos, asserting dominance over what little was left, their brutal power struggles echoing through the fractured remnants of civilization. Humanity's veneer of civility was peeled away, revealing primal instincts driven by desperation. Amid this chaos, small acts of resilience flickered like fragile candles in the night. Communities found ways to share what little water they had, rationing with fervor and ingenuity, transforming ancient knowledge into survival tools. Makeshift rainwater collectors sprung up on rooftops and in alleyways, while underground wells, long abandoned, were rediscovered and reclaimed through sheer necessity. Religious groups, NGOs, and local leaders tried to maintain some semblance of order and hope, emphasizing unity over division, highlighting the capacity of humanity to adapt even in the bleakest circumstances. Yet, questions persisted underneath every victory and setback. Could humanity find a way to survive amid such devastation? Was there hope beyond the chaos, or had society already fallen into an irreversible decline? Each day presented a new puzzle, a new struggle that challenged old notions of civilization, testing human resilience in ways never before imagined. From the rubble of collapsed infrastructure, new communities emerged, tent cities, underground shelters, and clandestine networks of access to what water remained. These acts of rebellion against despair hinted at the indomitable seed of hope that still flickered beneath the darkness. As rivers dried up and aquifers dried beneath the relentless sun, survival became a collective effort, a dangerous game of survival and morality. The once rigid hierarchies crumbled, replaced by makeshift councils and leaders raised from necessity rather than birthright. The fabric of society, strained to its breaking point, risked tearing apart entirely, yet, amid the chaos, a strange, quiet resilience grew. Could humankind transcend its fractured state? Could they forge new alliances, adapt ancient survival skills, and rekindle faith in each other? These questions haunted every flickering campfire and whispered in every hurried conversation. Even as the world seemed to deluge itself in darkness, a stubborn ember of hope refused to die out. It whispered that within the ruins, new life could take root, if, and only if, people dared to believe in salvation amidst the ashes of their fallen worlds. The sun rose over a landscape scarred beyond recognition, a symbol of the relentless cycle of destruction and renewal. Humanity stood at its crossroads, battered but unbowed, trying to find a way forward through the chaos. Could this dire ordeal serve as the ultimate test of human resilience? Or was this the point of no return, the moment where everything humanity built crumbled into dust, leaving behind only echoes of what once was? The answers lingered in the smoky air, in the exhausted eyes of the survivors, in the silent, hope-worn landscapes. They held onto the faint possibility that amid the waterless wasteland, life's stubborn will could still find a way. In the shadowed regions where the thirst of millions has become a haunting specter, humanity has woven a tapestry of innovation and diplomacy, tentative lifelines in a world parched and distant from its former abundance. The screen flickers to life with images of vast desalination plants, their towering structures sprawling like metallic conquests over arid landscapes, piercing the horizon with a promise of salvation. Water gushes through tubes, purified against the backdrop of a relentless sun, each droplet a small victory in the ongoing war against scarcity. Across the globe, new pipelines carry brackish water from distant seas, transforming salty tides into life-giving streams. These technological marvels, born out of desperation and ingenuity, gleam as symbols of human resilience. But their hums and whirs are not enough to hide the creeping realization. These solutions are but bandages on a growing wound. The cost, the energy consumption, and the environmental toll whisper warnings that perhaps this approach cannot sustain the weight of so many lives depending on it. Meanwhile, known and unknown to the wider world, waves of water recycling initiatives surge forward. Desks in government offices worldwide sit cluttered with reports and proposals, aiming to reclaim and purify wastewater, rainwater, even the gray water that once was discarded as waste. Satellite images reveal reservoirs filled anew, shimmering with recycled water. Hope in a glass unmarked by the scars of pollution. Yet, resistance persists. Cultural taboos and public skepticism act as barriers, fueling debates about safety, morals, and the very essence of water's sanctity. In diplomatic chambers, movements of negotiation unfold, treaties signed in quiet rooms, promises made beneath the flashing lenses of media cameras. Borders blur as nations recognize that water, a shared resource, must unite rather than divide. Agreements are struck, allocating rights, setting limits, establishing joint commissions. The world watches, breath held, as leaders attempt to stitch fragile bonds over waters that once caused wars. These political acts seem to promise harmony, a new era of cooperation grounded on necessity. But beneath the surface, mistrust simmers. The history of conflict over water lurks as a shadow over these fragile pacts. Amid these technological and political endeavors, countless grassroots efforts appear, communities rallying to conserve, to educate, to adapt. Indigenous traditions are revitalized, ancient techniques merging with modern science, creating hybrid solutions tailored to local needs. Rainwater harvesting systems are installed in villages, drip irrigation reduces water waste in farms, campaigns inspire citizens to turn off taps and rethink consumption. The dialogues are embedded with hope but also colored with skepticism. Will everyone truly participate? Can these efforts reach scale? Or are they mere drops in an increasingly empty ocean? Yet, despite the dazzling array of solutions, innovations born from necessity, treaties etched into history, communities reclaiming agency, the question looms ominously. Are these measures enough? The images linger, children playing in drought-ravaged landscapes, their parched mouths and weary eyes shadowed by the hope that these efforts will turn the tide. The landscape dominates, emphasizing the urgent need for change, and the uncertainty of whether mankind's responses can match the relentless advance of scarcity. The scenes shift subtly, scientists scrutinize data, policymakers deliberate, activists rally. The camera hovers over a world teetering on the edge of adjustment and collapse. Each solution presents a glimmer of hope, but also a mirror reflecting the magnitude of the challenge. The narrative hints that perhaps technological fixes and diplomatic accords are only part of the answer, a puzzle missing pieces that go beyond inventions and treaties into the realm of ethics, behavior, and collective will. As the chapter nears its close, the viewer is left with an unsettling silence, broken only by the sound of distant waves crashing against parched shores. Humanity's ingenuity has birthed these solutions in an effort to stave off catastrophe, but whether they can truly quench the growing thirst remains uncertain. The viewer is pulled into the question that threads through the narrative. Will these efforts be enough, or are we merely delaying the inevitable? The screen fades to black, leaving a haunting silence, the echo of a world holding its breath in the face of an unforgiving reality. As the world spins into the unknown, the silence of drought is not just the absence of rain, it's a roar echoing through governments, societies, and the depths of human desperation. Entire continents stare into the abyss of water scarcity, their eyes shadowed with fear and uncertainty. Amidst this desolation, new powers rise from the shadows of old regimes, positioning themselves at the crossroads of survival and domination. The map of influence is being redrawn beneath the relentless sun, and the whispers of a new world order are beginning to take form. In the arid expanses of what was once lush fertile lands, clandestine alliances are forged in the flickering glow of clandestine meetings. Countries that once warred over borders now conspire over water rights in hushed council chambers hidden away from the world's gaze. These links are fragile, yet powerful, built on the desperate understanding that water, more precious than gold or oil, is the ultimate currency now. Control over the dwindling supplies becomes not just a matter of survival but the very foundation on which new global hierarchies are built. Emerging superpowers, their economies buoyed or battered by drought, assert themselves through strategic partnerships and authoritative measures. Some wield military might, deploying forces capable of seizing water-rich areas, reservoirs, rivers, aquifers, using force where diplomacy fails. Others manipulate the global market, buying and selling water rights on the black market, turning scarcity into wealth, into leverage. The old nations, once dominated by industrial might or colonial empires, find their influence waning, their voices drowned out by those who control the future's most vital resource. As alliances form in secret, a web of interdependence and coercion tightens. Small nations, with no choice but to capitulate, become pawns in a larger game, their water supplies discreetly diverted or hoarded by the new elites. These alliances are often labeled as economic pacts or environmental collaborations, but in reality, they conceal agendas fueled by greed and power. A nascent global order is emerging, one where water is the new battleground and control over it defines sovereignty. In the shadowy corridors of power, behind walls reinforced to withstand natural disasters and cyber warfare, the architects of this new hierarchy deliberate and manipulate. They see the impending drought not as a crisis but as an opportunity, an opening to cement their dominance, to create dependencies and enforce compliance through the threat of scarcity. It's a silent war, orchestrated beneath the guise of diplomacy and environmental concern, yet tearing civilizations apart with every dwindling drop. Meanwhile, echoes of chaos ripple through water-stressed communities. Farmers watch helplessly as their crops wither amid cracked earth, their livelihoods evaporating along with their rivers. Urban centers buckle under the weight of rationing, protests erupting into clashes with authorities seeking to enforce water cuts. The social fabric frays, revealing the fragility of modern civilization when deprived of its life's blood. Behind these scenes, a quiet but persistent question grows louder. Are we witnessing the birth of a new global order, one that governs by domination of resources rather than ideology? From the high towers of corporate conglomerates to the remote enclaves where water is hoarded underground, a sinister dance unfolds. States and powerful corporations become indistinct, their interests aligned in the pursuit of control over the water that sustains life itself. Cyber warfare becomes a tool, hacking into aquifer management systems, sabotaging pipelines, spreading disinformation, to weaken adversaries and tighten the grip on essential supplies. The boundaries of sovereignty blur as water flows cease to respect borders, making geopolitics a game of manipulation and power. Throughout it all, the people are left to question the very fabric of their reality. Is this the dawn of a new, darker era? A time when the ruling classes, cloaked in eco-phrases and technological jargon, are orchestrating a shift in global power structures, all under the veneer of environmental sustainability? Or is this an inevitable evolution born from the unchecked exploitation of natural resources? The lines between survival and greed, ethics and strategy, are erased in the relentless pursuit of control. Conversations swirl in dimly lit forums at the highest levels of power. The term, water security, echoes like a dystopian mantra, often translated into strategies of containment rather than conservation. Propaganda campaigns promote the idea that water scarcity is a natural progression, a consequence of climate change, absolving the future elite from responsibility. Yet, behind closed doors, the truth is darker, more calculated, an orchestrated reshaping of global influence by those who see resources as the true keys to dominance. As the sun continues its merciless descent over parched landscapes, it becomes clear that the old order, the one built on democratic ideals, on territorial sovereignty, on shared resources, is crumbling. The new order is emerging not with fanfare or declarations, but with quiet precision, an invisible hand guiding the flow of water and power alike. It is a world where control is king, where alliances are forged in the shadows, and where the very essence of human life is weaponized against itself. And amidst the chaos, a haunting question lingers in the minds of those watching from the outside. Is an entirely new global order emerging? One that rules not just by governance, but by the scarce, life-sustaining essence that no one can afford to lose? Are we destined to become mere subjects under water overlords who will decide the fate of millions with the flick of a valve or the stroke of a cyber key? The silence of the drought is deafening, and what hides behind it is a future that may be darker than anyone could have imagined. In the fading twilight, the town's cracked, dusty streets whisper stories of change and challenge. The air is thick with the scent of dry earth, a silent reminder of the relentless drought that has gripped this land for years. Every droplet once deemed insignificant now weighs heavily on the collective conscience, a precious currency in a world teetering on the edge of scarcity. In the shadows of dilapidated buildings, individuals move with a quiet urgency, their eyes reflecting a fierce determination born of necessity. At the heart of this community stands a woman named Ella, her face etched with lines of worry and resolve. She gestures towards the communal well, a fragile lifeline that supplies their limited water. Her hands, calloused yet steady, are emblematic of a generation that refuses to surrender. Every drop counts, she declares with quiet conviction, rallying her neighbors to a cause that transcends mere survival. It's a call to arms, a plea for collective responsibility amid dwindling resources. Across town, a group of young activists, teenagers with fire in their eyes, gather around makeshift tables covered with notes and diagrams. Their voices rise in passionate discussion about innovative water-saving techniques and grassroots solutions. They've transformed a vacant lot into a rainwater harvesting site, capturing what little rain falls from gray skies. Their efforts are small, but their hope is vast. They believe that unity can forge a path out of despair, that community-driven initiatives can serve as shields against an impending crisis. The camera shifts, tracing the path of water from these grassroots endeavors into the homes and hearts of the people. A mother shows her children how to collect every drop rainwater offers, turning a simple bucket into a symbol of resistance. The children giggle as they learn to conserve, unaware of the magnitude of the battle their community is fighting. In these daily acts of mindfulness, resilience takes root, nurtured by shared purpose and unbreakable bonds. Meanwhile, a local engineer and scientist, Dr. Martinez, stands amidst a maze of pipes and testing devices. He speaks softly but with conviction about sustainable innovations, low-tech filtration systems and DIY desalination units that could become the backbone of their adaptation strategies. His voice carries an undertone of hope and desperation, a reminder that ingenuity and passion can challenge even the gravest of circumstances. Every idea, every small breakthrough, becomes a beacon of possibility in a landscape that often seems devoid of hope. As night falls, the community gathers under a canopy of stars, not for celebration, but for continued solidarity. They share stories of struggles and small victories, each voice adding to an unspoken chorus of resilience. A young boy, clutching a worn water bottle, whispers to his sister about dreams of a future where water is abundant once again. His innocence fuels a collective fire, reminding everyone that their fight is for generations to come. In the quiet that follows, the camera lingers on a mural painted on a crumbling wall. A drop of water rising into a flourishing tree, a visual manifesto of their perseverance. The image is more than art, it's a testament to the human spirit's capacity to adapt and endure. It symbolizes hope rooted in collective effort, a silent challenge to the devastating notion that they are powerless against nature's fury. And then, a pivotal question emerges, voiced softly but with profound gravity. Can collective action truly prevent catastrophe? The answer lingers in the air, unspoken but deeply felt. In the faces of these resilient souls, in the intricate web of their grassroots initiatives, lies a compelling narrative that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, unity and determination can forge a path toward survival. It's a testament to the truth that every drop might be small, but when pulled together, they create a force unstoppable by drought, despair, or despairing silence. As dawn breaks, the community awakens with renewed purpose. Their efforts, like the first light, illuminate a fragile but unyielding spirit. Every small act, saving a single drop, sharing knowledge, rallying together, amplifies their collective voice. For they know that this resilience isn't just about managing a crisis. It's about rewriting the story of their future, one drop, one community effort at a time. They are no longer passive witnesses to nature's wrath but active participants in a movement fueled by hope, unity, and the unshakable belief that together, they can defy the impossible. In a world teetering on the edge of collapse, where the rivers have dried and the lakes have turned to dust, hope emerges quietly from the shadows. The scene unfolds with a sweeping view of a young scientist in a brightly lit laboratory, her face illuminated by screens filled with data and glowing blueprints of innovations. This is a spark of optimism amid despair. She carefully adjusts a device, one designed to extract moisture from the air, transforming invisible humidity into clean, drinkable water. It's a small but powerful revolution, humankind harnessing nature's invisible bounty to survive. And she smiles, a moment of quiet triumph, knowing that these innovations could change everything. The camera transitions to a bustling city skyline, where solar panels stretch across rooftops and wind turbines spin gracefully against the horizon. These are not just symbols, but evidence of a shift, a civilization beginning to embrace sustainable practices. Urban farms sprout between skyscrapers, Green walls breathe life into concrete jungles, and communities gather in shared spaces planning new ways to coexist harmoniously with nature. These scenes hint at a future where humanity is learning to adapt, to listen to the earth rather than exploit it. As the narrative deepens, we see representatives from different nations, scientists, policymakers, activists, coming together at an international conference. Their faces display a mixture of concern and determination. They exchange ideas, forging treaties and frameworks for cooperation. An emblematic moment unfolds with a handshake between leaders from countries historically at odds, united by a singular purpose: to save what remains and build anew. These alliances symbolize a collective awakening, a collective recognition that alone, no nation can rectify the damage. Only through sharing knowledge, technology, and resources can true change be achieved. The story then shifts to the realm of community-scale innovations: families installing rainwater harvesting systems, farmers adopting regenerative agriculture, schools integrating sustainability into their curriculum. Each small act, each local victory, becomes a thread woven into the fabric of global resilience. It's a mosaic reflecting human ingenuity and stubborn hope. The message resonates. Even in the darkest times, the spirit of innovation and cooperation sparks a flicker within the collective soul. The film highlights groundbreaking technological advancements: affordable desalination plants, biodegradable materials, efficient energy storage solutions that are making sustainable living accessible to more people. The camera lingers on a young boy, curious and wide-eyed, watching a demonstration of a new water-saving device. His eyes reflect a future filled with possibilities, with a silent question hanging in the air. Can humanity truly save itself? Can we turn the tide before it's too late? The narrative cuts back to the scientists and engineers working tirelessly, their efforts driven by an unwavering belief that change is possible. Their perseverance is palpable, a testament to resilience in the face of adversity. Their work is not just science, it's hope manifested into tangible solutions. As they reveal their latest innovations, a sense of cautious optimism permeates the scene. It's a reminder that while the challenge is immense, the human capacity to adapt and innovate remains formidable. The story culminates in a poignant scene. A mother walks her child through a park, once a sprawling wilderness, now a lush oasis of life. They stop by a water fountain, not just a symbol of sustainability but a testament to human ingenuity and cooperation. The mother gently explains how communities worked together, how nations collaborated to restore what was lost. Her voice, filled with hope, affirms that the possibility of averting catastrophe exists if we hold onto our collective will. The closing shot pans upward, revealing a sprawling landscape where human settlements blend seamlessly into pristine nature, a mosaic of progress and harmony. The narrator's voice echoes softly, questioning and yet hopeful. Is humanity capable of saving itself? The answer lies within us. Within our choices, our innovations, our unity. The path forward is uncertain, but as long as hope persists, so does the chance to forge a better future. And as the screen gradually darkens, the faint glow of a new dawn lingers, an emblem of resilience, a testament to the belief that even in the final moments, hope can ignite the change we desperately need. In the quiet darkness of a world on the brink, the gentle hum of a dripping faucet echoes like a foreboding heartbeat. Each drop a reminder of what's slipping away, unnoticed by many, ignored by most. Behind the serenity of our daily routines, unseen forces churn: political agendas, corporate greed, indifference, while the waters that sustain us continue to diminish. It's as if time itself has become a thief, sneaking away vital resources, leaving behind only memories of abundance we take for granted. But what if we pause? What if we look beyond the surface, beyond the headlines, beyond the complacency that dulls our conscience? Because the truth is, the future isn't some distant, unchangeable fate. It's an echo of what we decide to do today. The future is in our hands. What will we do? Imagine a world where the rivers run clear, where communities thrive because they have access to clean water, waters that flow freely, untainted by greed or neglect. Visualize children laughing in fountains of streaming, fresh water, their innocence untouched by the scars of pollution. Envision a landscape where farmers no longer watch their crops wither under a blistering sun, exhausted by the overuse and depletion of groundwater. It's a future worth fighting for, but it begins with a single choice. It begins now. We are standing at a precipice, peering into the abyss of our own making. Each year, millions of gallons of water are wasted, left to evaporate, flushed unnecessarily, squandered in ways that seem trivial but add up to tragedy. Our faucets leak, our industries consume more than they need, and complacency fuels the cycle of destruction. But awareness is the first step. Recognizing that every drop lost is a drop denied to someone who needs it. This knowledge must ignite a fire within us. Policy change isn't just a distant hope, it's a weapon we wield. It's urging leaders to implement rigorous water conservation laws, holding corporations accountable for pollution, and protecting our freshwater sources from exploitation. It's demanding transparency and responsibility from those who shape our world. But policies alone are insufficient unless we partake actively. Our voices must be heard, our actions must resonate louder than the noise of apathy. And then there's the personal realm. Each of us a vital part of this collective story. Small acts ripple outward, creating waves of impact. Fixing a leaky pipe, reducing unnecessary water use, supporting sustainable brands. These seem trivial, perhaps insignificant in the grand scheme, yet they are the threads that weave a fabric of change. Every drop saved, every gesture of care, becomes a statement of defiance against destruction. Because it's not just about saving water. It's about reclaiming our responsibility, rediscovering our respect for the natural world. The urgency is undeniable. Climate change accelerates droughts, exacerbates water scarcity, and destabilizes entire ecosystems. We hear the warnings, scientists raising alarms, communities suffering, species disappearing. Yet so many turn away, distracted by fleeting pursuits or overwhelmed by the scale of the problem. But silence and inaction are forms of consent, cementing a future that no one will thank us for. What if we act now? What if, in this very moment, we recognize that the power to change our trajectory lies within us, individually and collectively? What if we refuse to accept the status quo, and instead, let a collective surge of action ripple through society? What if we ignite awareness, foster innovation, demand accountability? Because the future isn't a distant dream, it's a canvas waiting for our brushstrokes. And every action, no matter how small, adds color, shape, and meaning. The waters of the world are fragile, yet resilient, if we nurture them with care, respect, and urgent action. Because the real tragedy would be to let apathy drown hope, to let stories of scarcity become our legacy, to remain silent while the rivers run dry. We have the power, the responsibility, to turn this tide. So, I ask you, what will you do? Will you turn a blind eye, or will you stand up and be part of the solution? Will you be the voice that calls for change, the hand that conserves, the heart that refuses to forget? Because in the end, the true value of water isn't measured in gallons or liters. It's measured in the lives it sustains, in the futures it preserves, in the hope it inspires. And the future is waiting to be written. It's asking for our courage, our compassion, our commitment. The waters are calling. Will we answer? The decision lies in this moment. Because the clock keeps ticking, and every second stolen from us is a second lost forever. But every second we choose to act is a seed planted for a better tomorrow. The choice is ours. To continue as we are, or to change our course before it's too late. The waters whisper to us, reminding us that life is fragile, precious, finite. The future isn't set. It's a mirror of our actions, silent, powerful, unavoidable. It waits to reveal the legacy we leave. What if we act now? Not tomorrow, not someday in the future, but today. Because time, like water, flows unceasingly. And our chance to make a difference hinges on this very moment. So, what will we do? Will we step forward and carry the burden of responsibility? Will we protect, conserve, and advocate beyond ourselves? Or will we let the waters slip away into silence, into oblivion? The choice is ours. The future depends on what we do today. And in that choice lies the hope, an echo of resilience, a testament to human will, a promise that we still have time to turn the tide. Because when we look at the world, at its rivers, lakes, and aquifers, what we see is not just water. It's the reflection of our humanity. And that humanity demands action. It demands voice. It demands hope. Because the waters are waiting for us, an invitation to be better, to be wiser, to be responsible. And the question remains, what if we act now? Because the future isn't written yet. It's ours to shape, and in our hands, we hold the power to decide what kind of world we leave behind.